last few evenings with protests. We have here today Chief Keith Humphrey to provide an update and then opportunity for questions. We plan to conclude this meeting as quickly as possible, but also want to ensure as much questions as well. Chief Humphrey?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. To the directors, thank you for having me here. Just kind of want to give you a synopsis of what's happened over the last week. Of course, you know, the nation has been met with a lot of peaceful protests and not so peaceful protests over the death of Mr. George Floyd in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That caused a domino effect throughout the nation. Last week, based on intelligence that we were receiving, we started working on a response plan just in case something occurred in the city of Little Rock regarding protests, those being peaceful and not so peaceful protests. We worked with several of our neighboring agencies, Oklahoma State Highway Patrol, North Little Rock, Sherwood, Pulaski County Sheriff's Department to come up with a game plan. We initiated our game plan on Saturday, and that included resources from our department, which also included our special response team. One of the things that I want you all to know is that our special response team trains with other agency special response teams in preparation for something like this. And so Saturday was the first night of the initiative. There is a unified command that is established at the Arkansas State Police headquarters over at Guyer Springs at 6:30. It is manned by several of our upper command staff, Assistant Chief Alice Falk and Captain Heath Helton, and also several lieutenants, and also our PIO. That is to keep us updated on the deployment and the whatever actions that need to be taken. Also there's a live time video of various areas throughout the city. So there's nothing that takes place, no deployment that takes place without detailed confirmation regarding that incident. On Saturday night at the Capitol, the protest started out very, very peaceful. At some point, the protesters moved from the Capitol and walked down the service road of westbound 630. And then at some point crossed 630, temporarily blocking east and westbound lanes. Now, when I say that, they didn't stop, they didn't lie down on the freeway. That basically was a large group, so it took a minute for them to get across. They immediately went back to the Capitol. Prior to that, they actually marched from the Capitol to the River Market very peacefully. They were escorted by the Little Rock Police Department. Not one incident occurred during that initial protest. Nothing violent happened when they crossed the freeway. They went back to the Capitol, continued to be peaceful. At some point, we believe outside influencers came in and began to be very, very disruptive, to the point that they blocked a street, the street leading up to the Capitol. And when I say block, I mean no cars could pass. And so at some point it was determined to deploy special response team, which consisted of, as I mentioned earlier, Sherwood Police, North Little Rock Police Department, Arkansas State Police, and Little Rock Police. We did deploy our special response team. They were given numerous opportunities to disperse. They did not disperse, and at some point, there were items thrown at the officers. The decision was made at this point after various attempts to get them to comply and to move. It was decided that the best way to get the crowd to disperse and prevent further items being thrown at our officers, and also to prevent further damage to be done to a lot of the surrounding buildings. I want you to keep in mind that the Capitol was spray painted. There were several items burned, and also around the immediate area, there was vandalism that was done. And so after numerous attempts to get the crowd to disperse, we decided that the best way to do it was less lethal resources, which consisted of pepper ball, munition, and also tear gas. When that was deployed, the crowd did start to disperse. There was further destruction to some areas, some buildings, and at some point the crowd dispersed. We didn't make any arrests that night. Later on that night, there were several incidents that broke out throughout the city that we believe that may have splintered off from this initial incident. We had an incident at Target's over on University in Markham. Someone drove a vehicle through the front door, stole some items. We were able to apprehend those individuals. We had received intelligence that the outlet mall was going to be vandalized, so we had resources there. So we had resources throughout the city. As a matter of fact, we were concerned about the safety of the officers who were on standby at the 12th Street station. We had heard that protesters were planning to come to the station and make some type of statement. At that time, officers, a decision was made by Assistant Chief Hayward Finks to evacuate the officers and have them stage at a second location. Fortunately, no one came to the location, no protesters. So that's pretty much how Saturday ended. Sunday pretty much was the same thing. And let me advise you that daily we have briefings. We have unified command briefings. We have briefings with our officers that are going to participate in this event. Pretty much the same thing. Pretty peaceful protests at the Capitol, and then, as I said, after hours, then it became disruptive. Same exact thing that I mentioned before. There were individuals that were after hours, breaking windows, spray painting businesses, They splintered into the downtown area, and also the officers were pelted with bottles and other things. We made another decision. At this point, there was a four-team response team: Arkansas State Police, Little Rock Police Department, Sherwood, North Little Rock, and I believe it may have been 5 because I believe the National Guard's response team may have been involved in that. We had to also deploy tear gas and I believe pepper ball rounds. We did not apprehend anyone that night, I believe, and then the group continued to do damage in the area. Some of the same buildings that were damaged the night before were also redamaged. They also went inside some of the buildings and did some vandalism. We weren't able to round anyone up, but we were able to disperse the crowd. Fast forward to Monday night, the same setup. What we had was a peaceful protest at the state capitol. Very peaceful, large crowd. I showed up as a request of the crowd, of the organizers. Very, very nice young people who basically have pride in their city and just wanted to express themselves. No intention on being violent and disruptive. I was there. Mayor Scott was there. And then that event ended. Once that event ended, we had some of the same issues that we had previously, where we had groups of antagonizers that came in. The group splintered throughout downtown. I believe that one of the local news reporters was injured, and there was additional vandalism that was committed against various buildings throughout the downtown area. I believe that we made a couple of arrests, if I make no mistakes. That was Monday night. Tuesday night was the result of the resources that we used. Tuesday night was the results of the governor's direction. We still had a unified command. We made it very clear that I, as the chief of police here was still responsible for police operations in the city of Little Rock. We had 110 Arkansas State troopers, and we had 80 Little Rock police officers and several other officers from additional agencies that assisted. The city was broken up into zones based on the intelligence that we received. Once again, peaceful protest, no problem. As you know, the curfew had been changed to 8 p.m. The protesters who were at the Capitol made it very clear that they wanted to end their protest at 7:45. They wanted to make sure that they were in compliance with the curfew. I thought that was very nice. Once they did that, there was a group of antagonists that came in. We basically doing some more damage throughout the city, downtown. It's amazing how they kind of stayed in the downtown area and committed these acts of destruction. But stayed in the downtown area, larger group, they splintered off. And as the result of that, based on the vandalism and based on the violations, curfew violations, a total of 79 individuals were arrested. Of those 79, Arkansas State Police made 44 arrests. We made 14, and the other arrests were split between the other agencies. Those individuals were transported to the Pulaski County Jail, where they were fingerprinted, identified, fingerprinted, and they were also released. And let me say this, during the incident last night, officers were, rocks were thrown at officers. Once they, during the search of at least 2 individuals, they found handguns on these 2 individuals. There were other items that were found, from what I gather, in the bus that was used to transport these individuals. So it's not, there could have been a really tragic situation out there based on what was discovered. We don't know if there were additional weapons out there. I'm going to assume that there were. We just didn't find those individuals, and we just didn't find those weapons. So I truly believe if 2 were found, there were many more out there, because handguns are easily concealable, as you all know. There have been individuals that have been participating in these protests that have had visibly AR-15s out. That's their legal right to do that. You know, we can kind of control the actions of those individuals because we can see those weapons, and if they go to try to attempt any type of act, we are able to see that quicker than we are a handgun. There were some items left around the Capitol that we believe that were placed there that possibly could have been explosives. There were also, in some of the buildings, there were also Molotov cocktail type devices that we're thankful that they did not ignite. Those were thrown through some of the broken windows. Colonel Bryant, from the director of the Arkansas State Police, shared those slides today during the governor's press conference. So we're not dealing with, not everyone, and I'm very comfortable in saying this. I truly believe the citizens of our city are being compliant with the laws. I think they are being compliant, and they don't have any intentions on doing any damage to any property or hurting anyone. The sad part about this is there are those opportunists that are coming into our city. Not to say that we don't have any Little Rock residents that aren't committing these crimes, but I believe more so the people who are committing most of these crimes are coming from outside. If you look at the arrests we made last night, there were people from Conway, Searcy, North Little Rock, and other cities. Now, there were quite a few from Little Rock, but there are people coming from the outside. We also believe there may be individuals coming from different states participating in these events. We do, if you're familiar with Antifa, we know that Antifa is present at these protests. And if you know anything about Antifa, they're very dangerous. They have been identified or named an actual terrorist group. We are, based on a lot of intelligence, we know they're here. Some of the members have been identified by law enforcement sources actually seen at the event. We have seen individuals that are seem to be preparing for some type of device to be released because they're strategically putting on gas masks and things like this, taking pictures, taking videos that are later shown on Facebook and things like that. So we know they're actively here. The protesters also know they're here. And so I think we do a really good job of maintaining the peace between the peaceful protesters and the antagonists. Our intel has been amazing. I think we've been able to prevent a lot of things from occurring because based on our intel, and we've been able to vet that really well, been able to determine what is not accurate and what is accurate. And the thing about it is we get on top of it pretty quickly. So also I want to kind of talk about what happened the other day in the intersection of Broadway and 3rd. We had a protest beginning about 12:30, I believe, 12:30, 12:45. We had about, I want to say, 30 to 50 protesters that pretty much blocked the intersection of, the entire intersection of 3rd and Broadway. The unique thing about this is that we had several of them actually lined in the street. We're not going to move. We had 2 separate rows of individuals that had made a human chain so that we could not get to those individuals. Fortunately, some of the individuals I have a good working relationship with. I personally went and attempted to speak with these individuals to see if we could resolve this, to see if we could go somewhere and talk. One of the things I did say is that I would be more than happy to find a location, and if you want to just yell and scream at me, but just to resolve this and get out of the street, I would be willing to do that. They intentionally wanted to be arrested. That was something that one of them said. For 3 hours, they sit there before we brought in our special response team. That was the last resort. We had no choice. And the reason we did that is because we did not want our street officers actually getting involved in that. We did not want our street officers to go up and try to, we only had a limited number of officers in that area, and we did not want them participating because that could have been that could have been not so well. And so your average police officer, street officer, is not trained as well as the special response team. That's what they are trained to do. And so we did, our special response team did respond. Let me assure you that they were given numerous opportunities to leave. The decision was made that we would not use a level of force higher than the resistance that they were providing. Once the officers went in and determined to make the arrest, there was no resistance. They were handcuffed and they were transported. 28, I believe, I want to say 28 individuals were arrested, transported to Pulaski County Jail, where they were fingerprinted and released at a later time. All of this was caught on video. It was streamed live on Facebook. We've gotten a lot of positive comments about the way we handled that. I'm proud of the officers for handling it the way that they did, very professionally. Talked to the protesters, explained to them what they needed them to do. I think that helped us not have to elevate the force that we used. We're going to continue to have this initiative going every day until we determine that there's no need. I foresee us reducing the footprint of the Unified Command at some point. But as of right now, until we really get a better feel for what's going to happen, we're going to continue at the level that we are. What I'm hoping is, based on the news out of Minneapolis today, involving the officers that were involved in the death of George Floyd, and the charges have been upgraded and the additional officers have been arrested, we believe at some point that might calm things down. There's no guarantee, but we believe that may calm things down. If that happens, then we'll continue to monitor it, and then we'll adjust our resources as much as possible. But I know for a fact the agencies that have been involved have really been helpful. It allows us to not spread ourselves so thin as the Little Rock Police Department, But what it also allows us to do is continue to be able to respond to the calls of our citizens. So with those officers being dedicated to the protest, Southwest, 12th Street, and Northwest officers are continually answering the calls of service for the community. So the service has not been interrupted. The response that our community deserves has not been disturbed, and so we will continue to monitor that and ensure the safety of the city. I go back again, I want to commend the men and women of our department. I definitely want to commend all of the partners, law enforcement partners that are assisting us, and the men, and I want to also finally commend the citizens of our city. In talking to the organizers of these protests, one of the things that they want to make clear is that their passion is for to change the way that law enforcement conducts business. They want to ensure that the killings stop, or the deaths of unarmed black men are stopped, and that police departments and city government look at policies, look at procedures. Their voice is being heard, and the way I say it is that the African American community is tired of being tired. That's one of the things that I'm hearing over and over again from the protesters. They want to be heard. They want to make sure that their voices are heard and changes are made. They don't want to just hear lip service. So I think and I want to thank the mayor, because he's been open to. We've met every day. We talked. He's been very supportive. He understands what my goals are, what the goals of law enforcement. The citizens here have been amazing. The citizens here have supported the protesters. They've supported the efforts of law enforcement. There are some that don't understand some of the things that we do, but however, that's my responsibility as a police chief to explain the methods of why we do what we do and how we do it. And some people may not agree with that, but it's what we have to do. Once this is over, every day I get an update on what's occurred. I have been out each night, driving through the city, talking to the protesters, checking on the officers at the Unified Command and the officers that are on these posts. I'll continue to do that. And so that's an update for you all on what's occurred over the last several days. And, I'm hoping that the rain helps us tonight. But I think that as determined as some of these protesters are, I don't even think the rain is going to stop them. They are very passionate, and they are serious, and they want their message heard. So I'll entertain any questions you may have.
And before we go to questions, since this is a special called meeting, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Director Hendricks? Yes. Director Richardson?
Here.
Director Webb?
Here.
Director Peck?
Here.
Director Hines?
Present.
Director Wright?
Here.
Director Compuris?
Present.
Director Fortson?
Here.
Director Draycott? Present. Vice Mayor Wyrick? Present. Mayor Scott?
Present. All right. Board members? Director Wright?
So, Chief, you are expecting more protests tonight and moving forward?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. We know for a fact we have scheduled protests for tonight at the Capitol. That's what we've been told. Now, will they carry that out? I'm not sure, but we've been told that there will be more protests. Yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor Wyrick?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the report. I appreciate you coming today and sharing information with us. When you started your presentation, you started talking about at some point, and you used that several times, and then you said it was decided. So what I'm trying to figure out is what involvement you have had in the decisions in regards to specifically Saturday and Sunday for the pepper balls and the tear gas.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that question. So I've been informed of everything. As a matter of fact, there was one time that the SRT's special response team was set to be deployed. I basically said there's no need for that right now because it appeared that people were dispersing. At some point, about an hour or so later, that crowd came back. And so I was aware what was going to be deployed. Like I said, it's a joint effort. And so we had Arkansas State Police, Sherwood, North Little Rock, and Little Rock. So we knew at some point, members of that team, that joint team, if it rose to that occasion, we're going to have to, hopefully, we hoped that we would not have to do that, but we knew at some point we would have to possibly deploy chemical agents. And so being there.
And Chief Humphrey, just to interject, just because I know this is a varying question, I think if I understand Vice Mayor Wyrick, there were things done on Saturday that were different from Sunday.
That's correct.
I just don't want it to get combined and lost in the message.
Yes, ma'am.
And I specifically said Saturday, but I was going to go to Sunday because the only information I've seen has been what's been on the TV.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the only briefing that I've had.
Yes.
And I understood that the state police called for the tear gas. I didn't know about the pepper balls, but state police called for the tear gas on Saturday. And they are the ones that applied that. That's kind of what I'm looking for. And
that is correct. Saturday night, they did deploy the tear gas, and we were the ones that deployed the pepper ball rounds.
Okay. And then on Sunday night, it's my understanding that the city did the tear gas and the pepper ball.
There was a joint effort between state police, and we both deployed tear gas. We did deploy the pepper ball, but we both deployed tear gas Sunday night, yes.
Okay. So did state police make the call for that type of activity, or did you make the call?
Well, the Unified Command, I was surprised at what was going on. I basically said I agreed with the deployment of that. So I was aware.
Both nights you did, both nights, Saturday and Sunday?
I was aware, yes. I was aware that it was going to happen. My commander at the Unified Command informed me what the possibility was, and my directions to him was that as long as we can articulate what you're telling me now, and as long as we can articulate it, I have no problem with the deployment of that. And so, yes, I was aware of that, absolutely.
Okay.
And you're speaking to those that were committing violence, not to the peaceful protesters.
Yes, and
I want to
yes.
make sure everybody's clear.
Yes.
He's talking about to those that were
Yes.
committing violence.
Yes, and
Right.
if
That
I may
would
say
be much
something.
later in the evening.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was much later. That wasn't early. Let me clarify that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor. You're absolutely right. The tear gas was not deployed until vandalism
Right.
and other modes of violence were committed. So the tear gas was not deployed any time at the Capitol based on peaceful protest. It wasn't until the destruction and the attack against the officers occurred that tear gas was deployed.
Okay, so that's good information. I think people need to know that. The other thing that I'm curious about is, were there permits that these individuals applied for? How did you know where they were going, or did you know where they were going?
When you say the individuals, could you clarify what you're asking about where
Okay,
they're going?
typically, if we have some sort of procession or activity on our streets, there's a permit that's requested.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm asking, were there permits requested for these activities? And then also, how did you know where they were going? Because you talked about they were at the Capitol on Saturday, and then they went to the River Market, and, went to 6:30, and were you just following them, or
Yes,
did you
ma'am.
have some sort of script that they were going by?
No, ma'am. We had decided, it was determined, as long as they were peaceful and were not hindering anything, we would allow them to march. And so, yes, we had technology that was able to monitor, and that we did have officers posted, and we do have officers, some of our covert officers that are also involved. So we knew what direction they were going. As a matter of fact, the organizers of that protest Saturday let us know everything they were going to do up until the time they crossed 6:30. So we knew they were going to leave the Capitol. The police department was leading them. We were blocking intersections. We knew they were going to do that. We knew the route they were going to take. So we were very aware of that. We weren't aware of the 630, that they were going to go across 630. As far as a permit, I have no idea if they had a permit or not. That would be a question for someone who handles that. But
Okay, well, maybe somebody can tell me later.
Well, I can answer the permit. A peaceful protest is not a permit situation. You only get a permit for an organized event, and peaceful protests aren't meant to be organized with the city. That's the very nature of a protest.
Okay, good information. I didn't know. Thanks for the clarification. The other thing was for Saturday and Sunday, if I understood what you were saying correctly, you said there were no arrests that were made. But I watched TV and there were individuals that had Roman candles that were shooting at the police officers multiple times. And that's illegal. Those sort of things in the city are illegal.
Right.
So how did we not make arrests? Did we not catch them? Were we too busy with other things? Because that's a violation there.
it is a violation, but we decided, from what I gather, the fact that at that point the crowd had gotten larger. We had to get our special response team activated. And at the end of the day, we made the decision that it was probably best not to rush into that. But those Roman candles, the burning of the street, and the destruction of the Capitol, and then the crowds and the destruction around the Capitol and along, I believe that's along one of the streets, that is when it was determined that the SRT team need to come in. And you're absolutely right. We weren't able to catch some of those people because the bottom line was to disperse that crowd. Okay. And if they disperse and they go along peacefully, that's really what we want. And so we weren't able to make arrests like we did in the following days.
Okay. So you were talking about that you found some individuals that had guns in their possession?
Last night, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and they were on a bus. They were being transported by a bus. What was the situation with the bus and the transport?
That was the transport to the jail. So they had weapons on them before. When we searched them, they had the weapons on them.
Okay.
And so they were all transported. Everyone that was involved in the protest last night that was arrested was transported by bus to Pulaski County.
Okay. So it tweaked my interest because I saw a Facebook post where supposedly some 3 busloads of the Antigua folks were let out at a hotel. And so I'm thinking, well, is this the folks that are on the bus that you're talking about?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
No, the bus that we're talking about is a bus that's specifically used to transport. That information was provided to us. We were not able to locate those individuals. It doesn't mean that they were fluid and moving to other areas, but we did follow up on that. But we do know for a fact that members of Antifa were present in the protests. They have been present at each protest that we've had.
Okay, so we don't know if that was a true story or not.
We know that they were here, but I don't think that about the 3 bus loads of those members. We were not able to confirm that, but we are able to confirm that we do have members here.
Okay, the night that you arrested, or as a group, arrested the 79 individuals, you talked about 44 state police, 14 Little Rock, and then the rest were other agencies. How many of those, if you can tell me, were outside individuals? Were they all Little Rock or surrounding areas?
The majority of them were Little Rock residents, and the others were from surrounding areas, like I said, Searcy, I forgot what other cities I said, but they weren't all from here, but they were around, we'll say, central Arkansas area. Nobody from out of state was arrested.
In any of these evenings, you've not arrested anybody from out of state?
No, we have not arrested anyone from out of state.
And Vice Mayor, I'm going to have to interject because the meeting's not to last too long, and we want to make sure if there's any other board members have questions.
I just have one more.
Okay, just want to make sure.
I might be saving you. Somebody else may have the same questions. Okay, Well, I think you probably already answered it. The 28 that were arrested yesterday on Broadway,
Yes, ma'am.
none of those were outside the City of Little Rock residents.
That is correct. From what I believe, Vice Mayor, they were all Little Rock residents.
Okay. Were they from a particular organization?
No, they're civil rights activists.
Okay.
There's really, I can't give you a specific name. Several of them are well-known by us. And so they are very, very dedicated civil rights activists.
Okay, so bottom line is, we think people came in from out of state that were doing the bad stuff after the peaceful protest, but we're not able to catch any of them.
I can't say it because what they normally do is stay on the outskirts of the incident, and so they're able to get away faster than the other individuals are. And I'm not going to say 100% that we have not arrested someone from out of state. I'm just not aware of it.
Okay, that's the end. Thank you.
Director Adcock?
Mayor, I'm concerned with you cutting Director Wyrick off. This board has waited for several days to meet with you and to ask our questions, and we have had all kinds of telephone calls, emails, text messages, and everything from citizens. From listening to the chief, you have spent lots of time working with these people protesting. I would like for you to tell me how many neighborhood or community meetings you've had with like the chamber, with the legislature people, to talk to them about what's happening, because people out here in the community are not hearing, and all we're seeing and hearing is what the chief has said. And I think that we have a community that no one is talking to, and when they call us, we have no answers, so we have to just say, well, on TV we saw. So I think this board is being left out of this whole conversation, as well as the community is.
Well,
and so I take offense that you're wanting us to hurry up without questions. I haven't seen what the other directors have, but I know they've all been writing questions down. So, if it takes us to 9 o'clock tonight, I'm here to stay until we get all of our questions answered.
Well, respectfully, Director Adcock, if you listen to my statement to Vice Mayor Wyrick and also my statement at the beginning of this meeting, as the chairman of this board meeting, I said when we were going to start the meeting, do our best to end by 5 o'clock. Vice Mayor Wyrick had majority of the questions after Director Wright, and I asked him, interjected and shared that Vice Mayor Wyrick would need to kind of let other people have a question, which includes you. But as mayor and the chairperson of this board meeting, I can cancel this meeting at any point in time. And to answer your question, as it relates to the last, as we want to talk about since Saturday, I believe the death of George Floyd was last Monday. So we're now coming up on the 10th day since this particular issue has happened here in the city of Little Rock, and the transition of that nationally. You can attest that you and I have talked at least every day about different situations. So I definitely disagree with you making that type of statement, because you and I have been in constant communication. I've been in communication with many board members. Now, is there an opportunity to be every 5 minutes with a board member? No, that's not an opportunity. In my role as the chief executive officer, I try to communicate as much as possible, and I think you understand that. So I take a great offense to you making that type of comment.
Well, you always tell me I either insult you, so you take offense, I'm disrespectful. I would like to know what you feel like your obligation or responsibility is to this board to keep us informed.
And to keep you informed, the only way that I can keep you informed from a legal standpoint is this type of meeting right now.
And we asked
Is that
for
correct?
this
I'm doing everything within the legal authority.
We asked for this meeting.
And you have a meeting today.
And was told that the one thing we couldn't discuss was Chief Humphrey, and the first thing you have is Chief Humphrey and you asking us if we have questions.
Who made that? I never talked to you about what we couldn't discuss. What are you referring to?
One of the directors had told me that we was not to question.
Did I tell you that?
No, you did not.
So then why would you make a statement? If I didn't tell you that, then why would you make that type of statement?
Because I'm sure that the person that told me that had been
Well,
told
I mean,
that.
if I didn't tell you that, I didn't make that statement, so you're asserting something that's not true.
Well, you're wasting the time of this board by arguing.
Well,
Have you talked?
Director Adcock, you started this current situation with an offense towards me, and I shared a response. And I'm going to continue to be respectful, and you do understand the law. The only time that the city board can legally visit is in a board setting, which we are right now, which the city board requested this update, and you have an update.
Yes, we requested it. Okay, on the chamber, have you met with the chamber or the leaders of the chamber?
I meet with the chamber quite often. Actually, I met with the chamber yesterday for a business relation matter, and meet with the chamber quite often with a member of the chamber president as well as the CEO.
Have you met with our legislature for Little Rock?
Have I met with the legislature of Little Rock? I communicate with members of the legislature, yes. Have I had a meeting since Monday of the George Floyd with the state legislature? No. Have I had a meeting with the neighborhood association? You do realize we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I also have a certain number of people you can't have a gathering around, correct?
Yes, I know that.
So I think you know the answer to all the questions.
On Asher and Colonel Glenn, I went out there the other day. I got telephone calls the other morning at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. about the people out there shooting guns, and it sounded like cannons going off in Guyer Springs. I went out there, and those streets have black marks all over them. It's just pitiful the way they look. What was done out on Colonel Glenn and Asher?
Chief Humphrey, can you speak to the Asher detail?
Yes, I can. Director, each week starting for about a month now, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night, and we've scaled it back from Thursday night to Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We have approximately 20 plus officers out there. We also have assistance from the state police working that area. We have written tickets. We have arrested individuals based on, we've gotten several pursuits of reckless driving. We've located some stolen cars, if I make no mistake. We've arrested people with felony warrants. So we have made this a priority from Friday through Saturday of every week because we understand what's going on out there. They've actually made that their own speedway. And so we have been there every week. Now, I will tell you, this past Saturday, based on what was going on, we did have to pull some of those officers to help with the detail. But, however, later, that traffic, I drove by there myself. That traffic was very, very congested. But we sent officers out there, and within an hour, that area was cleared. So we've worked with Mosaic Church, we've worked with the businesses in there to let them know this is what we're going to do. Some of the businesses are closing earlier. They're blocking off their parking lots to prevent the congregating. So we have been actively involved in that situation. And if you need to, I can get you the numbers from the days that we've worked to show you that how we've stepped up our initiatives out there to ensure the safety of those individuals. Because what's happening, and that's one of the reasons that the mayor, during his emergency declaration a couple of weeks ago, he put in there that people should not be caravanning, which is what a lot of people do in that area. They drive 4, 5, 6, 7 cars deep at a slow pace, and they drive up and back, which causes an impediment of traffic. And so we have been able to address that issue, and we'll continue to address that through the summer months because we realize that's what's happening. Once we have reduced the problem in that area, they move to various areas throughout the city. So we're also working those areas. So what I will tell you is that we understand the problem and we're addressing it. Intelligence is a big part of that because a lot of these individuals are displaying their plans on social media, so we're able to address a lot of those things up front. And I'll be totally honest with you, there's just some times that we just don't know anything about what's going on, and next thing you know, we're getting phone calls that cars are congregating. But the Asher and University, Colonel Glenn area has been a priority, and we have really worked that. So if you like those the things that we've done out there and the hours that we spend out there, I'll be more than happy to provide you with that.
Well, they have moved now from the car wash back up the street further, so that now they've got 3 parking lots up there that they're involved with.
Okay.
And those people that own those parking lots, the people in that neighborhood are scared to death
Okay.
with all the gunshots.
Could you send me that information?
I gave it to your police officers.
Okay, but could you send that to me though?
I sure can.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right, we're going to have any member of the board that's virtual, then we'll, if not, I did see Director Hines. We'll give it Director Hines, but we want to also give the members of the board that are from remote. If you all would like a question, please send that message to Allie so we see it. Director Hines?
Chief Humphrey, thanks for being here. Wanted to kind of go back to Saturday night, and when you were answering Vice Mayor Wyrick's questions, you talked about not knowing about them going on to 6:30. I guess my question is, we were securing routes where they were walking, shutting down intersections, that type of stuff. So why were they allowed to go on to 6:30 if we were controlling intersections? I'm kind of having a little, and it ended up happening twice that night. So I'm thinking that if you're trying to provide a safe route for protesters to walk in, going on a major interstate is probably not the safest place. So can you kind of let me know exactly how that all happened?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, it's very easy. We knew about the planned protests from the Capitol to the River Market and back to the Capitol. The individuals kept walking, and we saw them going toward the freeway. We started contacting Arkansas State Police and our officers. We realized what was going on. We stopped traffic both directions to allow them to walk. We made a decision that the crowd was so large. We know if we get engaged that crowd when their minds made up, that could get ugly. That could end up being that protesters get hurt, officers get hurt. That's how you'll end up being on CNN, based on the fact that what were they hurting? We had the highway blocked off. Once we realized where they were going, we were able to block the highway, and it was very quickly. It was very fluid. They walked across. You're probably talking about 30 minutes. That was pretty good for a crowd that large. They went back to the Capitol. So we did not know they were going to do that. That was impromptu. But we were able to address that and get the responses that we need, resources that we needed in order to block off to ensure their safety and the safety of the motorists on 6:30.
So there was no standing order to allow them to go on the interstate. Our officers were not told to allow them to access. There was no order given by your command staff to allow them to access the interstate and not block it off?
It was told that as long as they keep moving, that they're okay. Now, if they would have blocked the freeway, would have laid out on the freeway and stuff, that would have been a whole different thing. But we decided, because it was fluid, to continue to let the crowd move. That's pretty much standard in law enforcement. If you get somebody that continues to move, then that's what we're going to do. We did, and Captain Helton and the command basically said they're moving. We adjusted our plan, blocked off the freeway, blocked off the service road. We were able to do that based on the positioning of the officers that were there. And so I consider it successful. Allow them to march, allow them to move across the highway. They didn't hurt anything. It probably was safer for us to do that. And we were able to block the traffic off at a distance where no one was able to ride up on them, so we protected them and the motorists. We did not know. We don't know what people are going to do from minute to minute. We're hoping that they stay located at the Capitol, but at any given time, a person they could march over in front of the hospital. They could march through a neighborhood. We have no idea. They'll tell us one thing, and they could end up something else. So that's why you have to have the resources in place to address and to adjust to what goes on. So I think the officers did a great job. I have no problem with it. I don't see why we would have stopped them. That could have caused more problems.
Thank you. Mayor, as far as peaceful protests go, we do have a permitting process to anybody that wants to have a protest or a march in this city. And it seems to me that I get it, but it seems like we had some engagement from Chief Humphrey with these protesters that in order to have an orderly, peaceful protest and not have folks doing stuff we're not expecting, shutting down major interstates, it seems like we've set some protocols up, and we may just have a difference of opinion about this, but I can tell you there's some organizations, Arkansas Right to Life, Shriners, some other organizations that have peaceful protests, that do things in our city, that do it the right way, so we don't have these unexpected instances. And it seems to me if the protesters it seems like we got better controls the weekend got going, and we didn't have them access the interstate from there on out. I just find it disturbing that we allow that as a policy.
Director Hines, I do appreciate you sharing your being disturbed in that manner. You are correct if you do want to have an organized event, but I think everyone who's sitting here today understand. One, we got to all recognize that in a situation in this time in our nation, It's not our place to tell people how to share and express their pain, their grieving, their suffering. It's not our place to tell people how to peacefully protest. If we understand history in the United States of America, any of the many peaceful protests that has led to the civil rights movement, that has led to any positive change that has been a wrong that has now been righted, if that's even a word, wasn't with a scheduled permitting process of a protest. So we do disagree from that standpoint, even from a historical standpoint. Yes, can you have a peaceful protest that has a permit? Yes, but I don't think it's the city board's place to tell peaceful protesters how they should have their peaceful protests. And again, as I often share, protests aren't meant to be convenient at all. If that was the case, we wouldn't have many of the historic breaking policies and legislation that has led towards many of us to have the freedoms of the United States at this point in time. Thank you. Any Director Fortson? We got to give you. We can hear you now, Director Fortson.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, my picture's coming in and out too, so I may vanish, but that doesn't mean I'm left. But the reports that you and the chief have both referenced that indicate outside organized forces like Antifa and others may be coming in have received some skeptical reaction from the editorial comments in the Democrat Gazette today, and as well as some social posting from I guess Max Brantley from the Arkansas Times, John Grummett, some others, and referencing some articles in other newspapers in other states about a whole lot of the threats of organizations like that have actually been just a lot of chatter on the social media. And obviously, the chief said that you had credible vetting, and I think you know your sources, and obviously you can't reveal all those sources, but if we had 79 arrests, and none of them were those people, and we haven't had any clear evidence. I guess my question is, do we have a vehicle for trying to identify those people under surveillance if they're in the area, so that we do know sort of that they're here in body as well as in threat?
Yes, sir, Director. Thank you for that question. We absolutely do. You know, there might be members of that organization that we have not identified, or who they may not be openly saying that they are. So, you know, the 79, I'm not going to say none of them are part of Antifa. We just don't know yet. But those individuals that we do know, that we have received intelligence on, that we have dealt with, absolutely. We're tracking them, their associates, anything that we get related to any outside sources who may come in and be disruptive. I think we're doing a really good job of vetting that information, and those are the individuals that we're keeping close eye on.
And Director Fortson, just from a personal perspective, U.S. Attorney Cody Holland has reached out to me twice and shared credible evidence as to what we were being referred to. I don't think he would be dishonest.
No, I'm perfectly comfortable with that. I was actually wanting to make sure we discussed that simply because of the editorial skepticism.
Yes, sir. No, I totally agree with you, and that's how we get it out.
Mayor, can I further answer that real quick?
Yes.
And Director, you know, a lot of times what happens is that because we can't show that information or we can't provide our sources, a lot of times people believe, well, if you can't show that, then it's not happening. But let me assure you that it is happening, and we are vetting that, and not just our local and state, but our federal partners are also getting that same thing. And a lot of times there is a lot of superfluous information out there on Facebook and other media outlets that aren't just, that may not be factual, but we have to vet all that because we can't take a chance on the one thing we don't vet may be the thing that causes a problem here in the city.
Director Compuris, Director Hendricks is in line, so Director Hendricks, and then we'll come to Director Compuris.
I got one more.
Oh, Director Hendricks, hold on one second. Director Fortson had one more question, then we'll go to Director Hendricks, then Director Compuris.
This will probably be a quick one, but Chief, I've heard your discussion of the unified command structure, and I guess all of my business career and organizational career, I've been accustomed to line organization, and it's a little fuzzy to me how you get a decision process when it appears you have at least alternating or conflicting supervision. Can you quickly tell me what the decision process is to say move in a certain area, remove a certain group? When you've got the state police at one point, you've got you and your troops at another point, you may have other cities people there. Quickly, can you tell me sketch how that comes together?
Absolutely. It's called NIMS, National Incident Management System, ICS, Incident Command. And so basically on a unified command, you have all parties in one room or one location. And so everybody's there to hear what the problem is, and everybody comes together on a plan of action. So it's not like we're doing it from different rooms. Everybody's there hearing the same information, making sure everybody's on the same page. And then once a decision is made, then the incident commander will say, this is what we need to do. So it's a ongoing unified process where everybody comes together and makes the decision.
It's sort of like a big committee system. And so long as the committee can make a decision, you're in good shape.
Pretty much so, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Director Forson, Director Hendricks, and everyone. We are approaching a little getting close to 5:30. So board members virtually, if you have questions, we could, if you get in line with Allie, to send your notice to her. I just want to recognize the time for this special call meeting. After Director Hendricks, it will be Director Compures.
I have a question.
Yes, it's time.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, who called this meeting?
I called this meeting.
You called this meeting, or you were suggested about this meeting. You know, I get a lot of information, okay? But I think the meeting is great, but the thing that bothers me is that you're black, the chief is black. The policeman that was ahead of Kenton was white. This is a racial thing that's going on, and I'm going to say it as long as I live. I'm thinking about what the young man asked about, you know, how the people are supposed to march. And he mentioned some white organizations that got permits and all that kind of stuff. This is totally different, what's happening today. And I'm not afraid to say what is on my mind. You all sit here. This board is majority white. We're working to get rid of that through at-large. We're trying to do that for a number of years. But it's time for change. And I'm not going to sit here and let you all jaw jerk with the mayor, who is a young, black, intelligent mayor. Okay? So I just wish that the mayor would, with these questions that you all call him, call me. Maybe I can buff it to sort of help the mayor. But I think that you're doing a wonderful job. I'm going to have to talk to my friend, BJ. It just doesn't make sense. But one thing about it, everybody's color is coming out. You can believe that, okay? And I could talk forever. If anybody want to challenge Irma Hendricks, come on with it. I want to really hear it. It's just really, really unnecessary. Again, I think you're doing a wonderful job. I think the chief is doing a wonderful job. And when I think about the many calls that I've received where they saw 3 Caucasian board members talking about moving the chief of police. Come on. Is it because he's black? Is it because he's doing his job? Come on. Please. I pray for all of you every day. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Director Hendricks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Hendricks. Director Compures.
Keith, a couple of quick questions. Just to take what Gene said a little further, when you're in the room, is it consensus, or is there someone in charge that finally makes the final decision on how you arrive at that? And then the second question is, you mentioned that somewhere along the line you found some sort of incendiaries or bomb-making materials or something like that. I think you just kind of mentioned that.
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate to the degree that's possible the implications of that, and give us as much information as that is possible, because of all the things I've heard tonight, that's by far the worst, the most terrifying to me.
Yes, sir. On the incident command, that's why it's important for everybody to have a representative, and so you have one person who's basically, once everybody's informed of what's going on, you have one individual that is basically saying, okay, we need the tactical team. Okay, we need the special response team, because they're getting information from the officers in the field. That information is being disseminated to the leaders in that command, and then one voice is basically saying, okay, this is what we need to do. So it is a unified joint effort before it is pushed out.
But y'all, by definition, the group has to come to consensus.
Yes, I mean,
Okay.
everybody knows. I'm going to say yes, pretty much.
Okay, I mean, it's not, this group has veto power, and this is good. I like
Yes,
the
sir.
fact that everybody has to come to consensus.
Yes, sir. When
Is
you
that
have a
the fact
unified-
that- Is that what I'm hearing, the
Yes, sir.
consensus?
When
Okay.
you have a unified command, everybody has to be on the same page. So when you bring everybody together, that's the purpose of it. It's under a mutual agreement. And so when you have that mutual agreement, really and truly, the city it's in, usually it's that incident commander that is running that, but it's through the mutual agreement. Based on what we have now with the governor's order, it's a little bit different. But before the governor issued that, it was Little Rock Police that were,
And then how does this change now? Because people ask me who's in charge, and it's a valid question, and
Yes.
I just wanted to know how, who's making decisions.
the
and how
state
we
police now, but we still have representatives in that room. So it's not like we're outside. They're not the only ones at the table. Everybody's in there, and they, yes, sir. But based on the governors, they are in charge of the incident command at this point. But they're not dealing with the everyday. Let me make this clear. I said this earlier. They're not dealing with the everyday operations of the Little Rock Police Department. I still am, as far as the patrol officers and investigations and stuff like that. So I just want to make myself clear on that.
But you have a place at the table.
Yes, sir, we do.
Okay, and then secondly, just about the incinerators and explosives.
Yes, sir. So we found we found several of those inside some of the buildings where the glass was broken, Molotov cocktail and some Molotov cocktails type items and some other incendiary devices that were not deployed, but there were some that were placed strategically that they could, if they had wanted to, they could have been deployed. And so that's very scary. Luckily, none of those devices, when they were thrown into those buildings, ignited anything. But they were lit. Apparently, they didn't ignite, and that's a good thing.
Does that imply where they come from? I mean, is that, and I'm not, again, I know you've got confidential sources and
Yes,
what's
sir.
going on, but that sounds like a more sophisticated situation than.
Yeah, it doesn't. We can't really say who. I'm sure that there's going to be some research. Let me say this. We capture a lot of footage, and so we're looking to see if we can identify those individuals that committed the vandalism that we didn't arrest. It'll be the same thing with this. We'll go over footage and determine if we can see who threw those items and things like that, and then we'll backtrack and see where they got them from, how they were made, and things like that. So yes, it's just because anything we're doing is ongoing. It's we know for a fact in situations like this, we're not going to be able to catch everybody in the act, but we will go back and investigate to see who we can identify, or some of the people that we have arrested may be able to identify some of the individuals that participated in that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I was trying to see. Director Richardson? And I think, Director Richardson, you'll be the final question unless Director Peck has. I know she's been very quiet. Director Peck, do you have any questions? But Director Richardson is next. I just want to, if you don't text Allie, that'll be your response. Listen. I can't hear. Text Allie, because I can't. Go ahead, Director Richardson.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the work you should.
Hey, Director Richardson, hold on one second. We want to get your volume. Need you to get closer to where you are so we can hear you. Director Richardson, you're having some technical difficulties. We can't hear you. Hold on one second. Director Richardson?
How about now, man?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, first of all, and the chief for
Director Richardson, if you'll bring your phone or your iPad closer to your mouth.
I want you guys to see my face too much. First of all, I want to thank you guys for the measured, deliberate approach to minimizing this unfortunate incident. I think that it's important. I think that you work with in partnership with the surrounding law enforcement agencies and go ahead and make decisions unilaterally. I think it's also important for us to recognize that a lot of your investigative tools can't be shared publicly with us because that's akin to a general giving strategies to the enemy. So I understand that we're in a real awkward position. I think that you guys are doing a wonderful job, and I find it quite interesting to register through social media. Because I saw on social media that you had Starsky and Hutch down there, and I wouldn't have been looking for them, but I couldn't find them. And Barney Miller and Barney Fife. But I think that it's important that you guys understand you have our support and our full confidence. I think you guys have done an excellent job with deliberate, measured tone, trying to minimize the impact and also trying to minimize the anger and volatility in my community. So I just wanted to thank you guys and continue to do the help safe and at least help our young people understand that they have freedom of speech and they have a right to be heard. We're listening. I think that's one way we can disconnect to some of those people young have our community, our cities. So I just wanted to applaud you guys for the work you're doing. You both have my support.
Thank you, Director Richardson. Also, I want to acknowledge you. I know you've been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work in the community as well. I appreciate your leadership during this time to help mitigate things. You still got those same skills, and we recognize those and appreciate you for it.
Thank you, sir.
I'm sorry, Al, let me check. Director Peck?
No, I don't have any questions at this point in time, Mayor.
Okay. With that being said,
Mr.
Manager?
Is Director Hendricks still on?
Director Hendricks?
To really get back to taking care of the city, I think you've done a yeoman job of what is happening right now, which is a first ever in the city of Little Rock. So my constituents are wanting to know about housing, blight, and all this stuff. So,
Director Hendricks,
that's what we're looking for.
Director Hendricks, this is Bruce. I just asked if you were still on because I wanted to say tomorrow is Director Hendricks' 90th birthday. And so we just wanted to say happy birthday on behalf of the city staff.
Bruce, could you help us lead off sing a happy birthday?
Well, I can't do that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Director Hendricks. Happy birthday to you. Happy 90th birthday, Director Hendricks.
Thank you, and if all of you all would live the life that I have lived of doing what you need to do and being fair with what you do. I'm not perfect, but something has happened that I have been blessed to live this long with 7 children.
Amen.
Mayor?
Yes, Chief.
Can I say just one quick question? I don't know if I did, but I just want to
one
share.
quick question. Then
one quick statement. I'm sorry. So I don't know if I covered this, but I just want to let you know what type of citizens we have here in the city of Little Rock. We had several protesters that went out in front of the 12th Street station on Sunday. And let me tell you, the greetings that the officers received at the 12th Street station will bring tears to your eyes. Officers were hugging protesters. Protesters were hugging officers. They prayed together. They talked. very proactive and very warm conversation. So I just want to share that with the citizens, that we do have citizens that care about us. We do have citizens in that area that care about that area and care about the officers. So I just wanted to paint that picture that these have been peaceful protests. So I'm sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to share that.
No, thank you so much. And again, as we shared earlier, the city of Little Rock promotes the peaceful protests. We stand in I definitely stand in solidarity with peaceful protestors during this time. And for those of us who live in this is our moment to be responsible and responsive to the needs of citizens that are experiencing pain and grieving and suffering. And as we talk through that, one of the things I did want to share with the board, my team and I have been meeting with many of the young organizers, working to help understand that there's a difference between those peaceful protestors as well as those that are antagonists, and there's a separation between those. We've listened to many, not all of the young organizers, but just about majority of them. Is one more group that we're working to schedule a meeting with here shortly. But many of the young organizers have shared some concerns, different policy points that they would like to see come to fruition. It's good to report many of those policy points we have already implemented since we've been in this administration. This board has passed many of those policies, so that's a good thing, but there's still more difficult work to do in regards to seeking justice to heal this land, as I've often shared before. And so we are going to be working on a proactive session that I will definitely be inviting the city board. I hope the board members choose to come. It's definitely a choice where we'll have a community listening session to listen to those voices that believe and feel that they're unheard, and for community leaders, city leaders to listen, not to give a speech, but to listen. For those concerns, and then to be responsive in a very proactive and productive standpoint, and then also continue to work to what I would call more of a healing and accountability path forward for the city of Little Rock. And so those things are underway. It'll be inclusive of city leaders, it'll be inclusive of community leaders, inclusive of clergy. And again, it's not for speeches. If you're being present with many of these peaceful protesters, they're tired of speeches. They have things that they want to share and express, and the next step is a proactive plan of action. Not kumbaya speeches is not what they're looking for at this point in time. And so we as a city have to be responsive to those voices that believe to be unheard, because those are our residents. And if our residents ever feel that they're unheard in any situation, it's our job and duty to be responsive. And so we're going to be working in a collective fashion. I hope members of the city board will be involved in that process, but also it'll be new faces, new voices. It won't be the usual suspects that are part of different things when we move forward. And because we got to ensure that everything is diverse and inclusive, but in working in concert with city leaders. And so I want to give that brief update. This meeting's now adjourned.